Today is October 2nd, 2019. I'm BrentNally, and I'm here with Ben Zion.
Good. Thanks for having me, Brent. A wonderful show tonight. Incredible presentations here at the first opening night of RAD Fest. I'm really excited to go over it with you. I'm excited to talk to you about the United States Transhumanist Party, my candidacy, the Futurist New Deal for America, and all of the things that we're doing to bring futurism into present day and to set the stage for a radical life extension, a core value of techno-futurists. And that's seen in evidence here tonight. These folks coming from all around the world showing a real devotion to these anti-aging initiatives and prospects. It's truly inspiring. This is my first time here, and I'm humbled and honored to be in the presence of such incredible researchers and leaders.
Definitely, there's some incredible humans here, and just for context, it's currently about 10:15 here at the 4th annual RAD Fest in Las Vegas, Nevada. We're at the Westgate Hotel and Casino, and we've had a long day.
Turning into pumpkins here.
Right? Yeah, well,
let's do it.
Yeah, but we got it. We can't stop. We got to get this content to you guys. So Ben is really excited because about 36 hours ago, you just found out that you are the nominee for the United States Transhumanist Party.
Yep, it was a hard-fought battle.
And here, Liz is bombing. This is the great Liz Parrish here, who you've seen on my channel. She's incredible. Liz, I want to get an update interview with you. No, that's great. That's great. We're gonna leave it in.
Just run that.
We're gonna leave it in. Yeah. So yeah, it's late. Everybody's a little. What's the word?
A little frazzled.
Yeah, we were just talking. We haven't had water in a few hours. We haven't eaten a proper meal because we're all
this
just
is part of our intermittent fasting regimen.
Because we're all just so excited to piggyback on what you said a few minutes ago. There's incredible energy at RAD Fest here. There are incredible human beings here who are really trying to be leaders and change the world based off the scientific data that we have, that we know. We know what's causing so many of the chronic diseases. We know what needs to happen in public policy to help people get rid of so many chronic diseases, fight aging, and it's just not happening from our leadership in public, most corporations in the pharmaceutical industry for the most part, and also in government. So this group of people here at RAD Fest, I feel like, is taking incredible leadership to do this, and free market leadership. And so for those who don't know, RAD Fest stands for the Revolution Against Aging and Death. And I have been part of this movement for many years personally, and I've had an excuse not to come every year. I've known about it. I got work. I've been in sales, the first year and the first couple of years. Then last year I was so fortunate to travel Europe with my wife. So I'm so glad to be here. I'm so glad to be here with you. And I'm gonna give the platform to you so you can share with the audience what's going on with your nominee for president.
Sure. Yes. Thanks, Brent. Tonight we had some incredible speakers. I just said a quick hello to Dr. Gaines, Dr. Bill Falloon, incredible presentation, and of course, key organizer of these organizations. And Dr. Falloon had some wise words, I think. He mentioned an earlier iteration of these groups in 2009, and people, we didn't have this understanding then, what you just described. We didn't have this understanding at that time in the pre-CRISPR era that radical life extension would be quite so viable as it is today, and that is very heartening. We mentioned that we've been in this world and following these trends for many years, but another moment in that for me was really Ray Kurzweil, who's going to be here this weekend presenting. Folks, get your hands on that and watch that. It's always an incredible presentation. But Ray Kurzweil taking on this role of effectively CTO of Google. And Ray Kurzweil is an avowed life extensionist for many years, and that moving into the CRISPR era, Ray Kurzweil is now at the helm of this very large organization pushing for life extension. People are saying this is really happening. That's
right.
That Time magazine cover. There's every country is different, but there's any number of issues that we need to overcome in this country to see that this prospect of a universal longevity escape velocity is here first. The United States has been a leader in so many industries for many, many reasons. While we're seeing, as Dr. Falloon said, more and more centenarians, more and more people living a long time, it's a small cohort. We've seen life expectancy drop off here in the United States in recent years. And there's a lot of things that go into that, right? It's a complicated picture, but it is what we want to try and address as transhumanists. It's the kind of conversation that we can have that's a little bit different from what other parties are doing. And we are principally an advocacy organization, and we want to be raising the profile for these things. So the Futurist New Deal has a number of points. People can find the pamphlets that were released for the primary, and also we're adding a number of new planks as we're finding key advisors in these recent days following this announcement. But the central platform of the Futurist New Deal for America is a federal land dividend, a basic income of $52,000 per year for every 18 to 63-year-old. And this was actually fundamentally the central feature of the predecessor in this organization, who I just spoke to yesterday, Zoltan Istvan, the founder of this organization. He has worked on this in 2016, also in 2018. This is something very close to his heart and his work. And it's something people might not realize. A lot of folks watching around the world might not realize that the United States holds these federal lands in great number. They're not all national parks, and we can be leasing these to corporations who make a very specific set of pledges. They have to be carbon neutral. They have to maintain a specific aesthetic guidelines. They have to return this property the way in which they received it. And
like your parents taught you when you were a kid, right?
Right.
Leave it at least how it was when you got here, and maybe better.
Yeah, if we could all live by this principle, and maybe had been living by this principle
like what we were taught when we were kindergartners, right? It's not that difficult to understand.
Yes, but it brings to the point, puts a point on this notion that there's a very real sense in which we haven't been serving the middle class in this country. There are countries, like modern-day Germany, modern-day Japan, that and many others where we could say maybe they wouldn't necessarily consider such a measure, and they don't hold these lands in this number. But the United States, we have seen these life expectancies fall off in the last decade. We've seen any number of features that suggest that the middle class is extremely unhealthy.
And let's just, sorry to cut you off, let's pause there for just a moment. From the data that I've seen, the life expectancy in the U.S. and other first world countries is lowering on average, but it's primarily not hitting everybody. It's hitting the more impoverished and the less educated.
Yes.
The wealthy and the educated are actually continuing to live longer.
Yes.
And so this is something that I really want the audience to understand, and that it's showing that you hear a lot about the income inequality, but it's not just income, it's quality of life inequality. And at the end of the day, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. But this is something that's different in my opinion, because people don't even know where to start. We have fundamental lack of leadership, and I'm sharing my opinion now. You're free to share your opinion. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I just think we just have massive lack of leadership in institutions in general, across the board, government and in many corporate institutions. So that's where I think what you guys are doing. I don't agree with everything, of any institution. I'm my own person with my own thoughts, but I think what you guys are doing is very admirable, and it's something to get behind.
Yes, and within this party, the Transhumanist Party, basic income initiatives and similar initiatives. There's others, a negative income tax, and the federal job guarantee is one that's very popular, quite popular in the United States in some circles. But these kinds of initiatives, they poll extremely well. But a lot of people are hearing about a basic income for the first time from candidate Andrew Yang,
Right.
who is also proposing a similar basic income, a little bit smaller and a little funded through different means.
It's $1,000 a month for
yes,
his, right?
yes,
So it'd be
as
12
opposed to
grand a year,
$1,000 a
right?
week, yeah.
And is this also for 18 to 63-year-olds?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. His is like ours. It's not going to detract from other benefits. For example, a person who's receiving Social Security benefits less than $52,000 a year, that would be bumped up. And this is true in all of these life-saving social programs. We're not going to be pulling the rug out from anyone. But also. We can't. You mentioned this income inequality. You mentioned these problems. 55% of U.S. workers are working in service jobs. Those are effectively artificially low wages. Those people are also paying effectively artificially high rents.
Right.
And those jobs are being automated out of existence.
Right.
That's so we've already done some disservices to our middle class, and that trend may well continue. We have to consider measures of this kind. And to not do so is to sentence people to death. And it's something that we have to have a serious discussion about. But basic income is not the only feature of the Futurist New Deal. We are also an e-governance ticket. We support blockchain voting. Every state having access to blockchain voting. Now, there's a number of countries that we've drawn inspiration from. I'm friends with Max Kay, the founder of the Flux Party. I interviewed him, and he's done incredible work. And the idea of blockchain voting is it's an option and it's an overlay. The Flux organization, they are post-partisan. They are not trying to influence policies other than greater digitalization. Advancing that and all of the benefits that derive from that. And I think people who take the trouble to come to a discussion of personalized medicine and how digitalization is affecting that can pretty well connect the dots to how digitalization can affect other facets of our lives. In discussing these people who we've drawn inspiration from for e-governance, I have to talk about my former running mate, and I'm hemming and hawing a little bit. She's a step back from working with the Transhumanist Party for personal reasons. She found a wonderful job in Estonia, where she and I had actually worked very closely. She was working with a government-run incubator, working with these e-governance measures generally. Estonia is a leader in digitalization in government.
Right, and I've seen some incredible things on that.
Yeah, it's really, really remarkable. But their program is basically it's not mandatory. About 55% of people at present measure are using this, but it's reducing costs. It's improving all manner of election outcomes, and that's the kind of system that we want to have across the United States, where people will have this option to be voting from their devices. This is a two-factor authentication. It's
been a long day for us, promise. We've been
me.
going for like 14 hours straight.
We're running on fumes here, and that allows people to vote. Most generally, be voting from their desktop machine, and then verifying that from their phone. But there's other options even therein. So this push, not just for blockchain voting, but digitalization across a broad spectrum of government services is extremely important. And that leads us to why we're here today, which is life extension. We can use this digitalization, as Estonia is doing, as Israel is doing, as a number of other countries are beginning to do, to really build a quality 21st century public health service that is able to not just take care of the people that are unwell today, not just take care of the the sick and infirm today, but also begin shifting these many trillions of dollars that are spent on end-of-life care. We don't want to begrudge those ill
Right.
people, but we want to be shifting those funds to be put to better use by constant oversight, by prevention. Talking about all of the things that we're talking about today, personalized medicine, senolytics, all of the many interventions and more, that these things cost pennies on the dollar compared to end-of-life care.
It's just better ROI once you understand
Yes.
the true problem in the data.
Yes.
It's really simple,
Yes.
but it's just something that most people are ignorant about still.
Yes.
And our leaders are ignorant about.
Yes,
So.
it's
We shouldn't even
incredibly-
call them leaders. And nowadays, our
Yes.
politicians are followers. What they do is they follow the trends. They follow what the people want. They're not leaders. Leaders lead.
Yes.
So I admire you for standing up and being a true leader. I want to touch upon a couple points that you've mentioned. So first of all, I'd just be curious how many Americans, if they were polled, what national government do you think is leading in e-government technologies? My guess is they wouldn't put Estonia on there at the top, but they are doing some incredible work, and it's something that we should definitely take heed of and pay attention to. So thank you for sharing that.
And it's an interesting feature, this historicity of Estonian digitalization, because they transitioned from being a relatively poor country, a former Soviet bloc country in the 1990s, but they didn't have a lot of barriers to entry for implementing this sort of thing. And so they were able to do what other countries weren't doing, which is just focus on digitalization in the early days of the internet, effectively. And so by 2006, they had this fully fledged e-voting system. And today, this i-voting system, as also referred to, is it is quite remarkable what they've done. And they're not a tremendously wealthy country.
Right.
But they're getting good benefits, again, like what we were saying, human development.
Right.
At the center of it.
And we've seen other similar things happen in other countries, like many countries in Africa, like with M-Pesa, mobile payments. These companies just leapfrog the legacy technologies right into the newer ones. Just real quick on me, my wife and I quit our jobs about a year and a half ago and traveled the world. We went to 25 countries last year, one of which was Israel. I have family there, and the technologies there is incredible. And we did not make Estonia. That will be on our next Eastern European trip. But you see a common theme with just leapfrogging, because so for example, M-Pesa in Africa is a mobile payment platform where they didn't even use credit cards, which we've been using for 50, 60 years here. And when my wife and I, sorry for if you guys hear that noise, my wife and I, when we were traveling last year, we noticed that most of the credit card payments were already on Bluetooth, where that really hadn't happened much in America for us. And then when we got back this year, we got a couple new credit cards, renewed, and boom, Bluetooth. So it's happening here, but you're seeing a lot of these newer technologies happening in other countries before us. And that should get under our skin as Americans. We're supposed to be first leaders in technology, especially, So listen to Ben over here, if you guys want these type of policies, you got to, elect the right people.
And we're one feature of the Futurist New Deal also is talking about data being a public good and effectively a human right. And you spoke of leapfrogging a moment ago. We're on the verge of having 3 big companies having mini satellites that will be beaming data the world around. And again, right now, I've done a lot of interviews with folks in part who are doing great organizing work on behalf of technofuturism. But they're in countries where they're basically still their only data is 3G, 3.5G. They don't have adequate infrastructure for other kinds of internet, and their phone internet is a little unreliable. And we could see an incredible turnaround with this satellite technology, and we're hoping that one of these 3 guys, Google, Amazon, or the Musk organization, will really kind of bring that front and center as soon as possible. But we're as wonderful as that would be for the human race. 100,000 people die every day.
About 110, I've heard, is the new numbers.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes, and that's to prevent those preventable deaths in aging.
And that's out of, just so everybody knows the data real quick, because a lot of my audience, I talk about these things, but this is so important. 150,000 people die on an average day. About 110,000 of those people are from age-related deaths. But they're not just like getting hit by a bus. They are having years, but most likely decades, of a slow decline to their personal, social, mental faculties. It's affecting their families, and it's affecting our economy. My wife's grandmother is 95 years old. She's an incredible person, but we have had to sacrifice a little bit to help her out this year, which we did the right thing. We're happy to do that. She deserves that. But we could be getting her certain technologies, healthcare technologies, where she could be more independent. It's just that she's not really aware of them, and I can only do so much because she's kind of so far now. So these are the things that we want people to be educated about. It's going to take time. It's not going to happen in a week or month or a year, but you have to start somewhere by educating yourself, surrounding yourself with like-minded people, and paying attention to people over here like my man Ben.
Well,
right?
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And I hope that I hope that is the takeaway that people have, because there's a very real possibility. Just as Bill Falloon said, it's in 10 years, so much has changed with anti-aging.
Just so everybody knows, Bill Falloon just gave a speech, and he showed some incredible slides of the last 10 years of how much the anti-aging world has progressed. So I apologize.
Yes. And there's a very real possibility, if we don't have the kinds of institutions that can make best use of this, if we don't have a level of scientific literacy among people, some part of this could, for some period of time, be an orphan technology, not being adapted as quickly as it should be, and that again has a
we can't afford that, right? It's just too important.
Yes. So we need to not only accept that this sea change in biomedical technology is happening, but also be talking to your friends, talking to everyone. Don't talk about this in terms of some science fiction idea of many years from now. Talk of it in terms of the kinds of interventions that are coming to market right now, and the kinds of illnesses that you or people that you know might be concerned with. Because here we heard some folks saying that they're proud immortalists, and I count myself among them. But it's very good to be talking about this to ordinary folks in terms of what it would mean to them, what it would mean to their loved ones. I'm become interested in life extension. My mother has been a type 1 diabetic since she was very small, and I've seen this progression of technological advances in the treatment of diabetes, and it's quite remarkable. And I want her to be cured of this, and I want her to live as long as she might want to live. She deserves that, right? As a human, and with the technologies that we have and that we should be creating with the resources we have. Yes, and it's a good point, because we do have the resources to do this as a civil society. We need the political will, and we need the literacy to make that happen. I love it, and it's just so incredible, the people you see here. Earlier in this interview, the Liz Parrish little bomb, that was not planned. Liz is incredible. I've interviewed her on this channel, and I hope to have an update for you guys with her soon. Her son has type 1 diabetes, and that is, for people that don't know her story, that is what actually motivated her to learn more about this anti-aging world. That's what brought her in. That was the catalyst. And because she just said, how could this be happening to my son, and how could you guys not have a better treatment protocol? And now here she is, one of the leaders, in my opinion, in this world. A lot of people still just don't know what she's did, so I just want to say that real quick, because it's so important. She had the first ever telomerase gene therapy on September 15th, 2015 in Bogota, Colombia, and she had to go to Bogota, Colombia, because it's illegal to do it in the US and pretty much every other country because of the FDA. When we've seen the telomerase gene therapy have nothing but incredible results for every animal that had been tested on. So it dramatically improved their lifespan and their health span, reversing so many aspects of aging. And now here it is, just over 4 years later, as we record today on October 3rd,
2019, and she's shown massive reversal of every biological test she's had. And I just saw some people in a booth today that have some more biological tests of aging, and I want her to take all of them so that we can prove that she is much younger than her chronological age of 49. So apologize, I just wanted to throw all that out there, tie it all together.
Yeah, I also had a chance to talk with Liz a couple times and interview her, and her story is incredible. And also, in this week since I did interview her, a validation of this telomere lengthening in a recent study, because it was there was concern that there might be a correlation between this and cancer.
Right.
It's now been disproved. More or less.
I interviewed Aubrey de Grey on July 17th and asked him about this, and at that time he was still concerned about that. I saw Aubrey in the hallway a couple hours ago, didn't get to say hi, but I'm hoping, we should really ask if he's rethought his beliefs about that, because I mean, how long are we going to sit on the sidelines and say, well, maybe she'll get cancer in 20 years? Well, we're all going to die eventually. Like right now, over 4 years later, she's showing dramatic improvement. And just look at her. I've told a few people, hey, that's Liz Parrish telling her story. And now it's like, she's 49. A few people just said, well, she doesn't look 49. So make your own judgments, people. But these things are happening, and we're just trying to bring you the scientific facts, the most objective information about what's going on.
Yeah, and that's an important facet is to stay literate on these things, to keep in mind on these open things, because there's so much new information always coming. So it's something that I don't think people are even doing right now at a baseline level generally, which is considering this prospect of longevity, escape velocity.
And can you please do it? So some people might not. I've said it many times on my channel. Aubrey de Grey termed it. It's longevity escape velocity just means basically that there's hopefully going to come a time where every 1 year that you're actually chronologically aging, we will have reversed aging a little bit more, and hopefully more than 1 year of your biological aging through technologies that we have. So therefore, you make it to longevity escape velocity, then you made it. You don't get hit by the bus or the proverbial bus, then you can live indefinitely, is what we're all hoping for, and it's the goal that we're striving to. Is that?
Yes.
Perfect.
And our friend Ray Kurzweil, he says that as of 2020, the technology will exist for Ray Kurzweil and increasingly others to be aging in reverse in this fashion. And he's also theorized, going back some years further, that we would reach this point as a society around 2029. Some people reasonable people might disagree on when that's coming. Ray might think it's a little closer now, I think.
Right.
Some people might think it's a little farther off, but we have to acknowledge this prospect. And for every person who says, I believe in this is worth fighting for, who has this dedication to science. You don't have to be a scientist to seriously, you don't have to be a researcher to seriously consider the importance of science to your life. So the fact it's sometimes lost on Americans.
I get a little frustrated sometimes with the word science. I'm not a scientist. I'm wearing shoes. I'm putting on clothes. Science made everything. Look around. The thing we're recording on, this is all science.
Yes.
This is science. Every single thing that gives value to your life is basically created through science. So we'd just be throwing mud at each other in caves like 10,000 years ago before science. So, especially the scientific revolution of 1600s, that was one form of scientific revolution, but there's many forms of science. So, sorry, that's just my rant. This gets me a little frustrated when people.
It's very frustrating. But
we want to empower people, come on, you're smarter than this. People know. They just need to start paying attention more. Listen to this guy Ben over here a little bit more, right?
Yes. Reasonable people might have reservations about this technology or that technology, but anti-aging technology is uncontroversial.
Right.
We hear words like a deathist cult and that's strong language. Like immortalist is strong language, but it gets right to the point. We need to change our thinking to allow for us to benefit from this, because as we allow that to happen, as we individually accept it, everyone needs to accept it. We'll see network effects.
Right.
It comes faster. Maybe it's not 2039. Maybe it's not even 2029. Maybe it's 2025.
The future is very hard to predict,
Yes.
but we should be listening to people who are credible and have a credible track record of predicting the future. And according to Bill Gates, that person is Ray Kurzweil. You know, so we should be listening to these type of leaders. And so, I wanted to state one other point when you were talking about the jobs and loss of jobs. So my last job, my wife and I quit our jobs, but I worked at LinkedIn for a few years, and I was in the learning department. And so we have a lot of data at LinkedIn on the actual jobs that are being eliminated and created, and we have pretty good prediction metrics on that. So it's been about 1.5 years since I left and kept up with this. However, one thing that to me is grossly underreported and misunderstood by the general public is that there are a lot of jobs that are becoming obsolete. Most people kind of understand that, feel that, and science fiction talks about that and stuff. But one thing that's being drastically underreported is that there are more job openings now than ever before in human history in America. There's over 3 million. However, they're all very, very high-paying, high-skilled jobs. $150,000, $200,000 a year salaries that people don't have the skills for, which is what I was doing working at LinkedIn Learning, helping upskill people. So the point is it's an empowering message. Like, you could make more money, care about yourself a little bit more, have higher goals, have higher standards for yourself, and you could have that job the last 10 years making $40K and wherever you are in America. Doesn't mean you can't be making $200K in 2-3 years. Maybe you can do it next year, but maybe your stretch goal is to do it 1 year. But realistically, there's no reason you can't upskill yourself online with all the e-learning platforms and get a much higher paying job. Like, let's get excited, you know what I mean? And I think you guys have such an empowering, exciting message, and I just want people to understand the true data of what's going on. It's not all doom and gloom. You're not just losing your job.
This is a good point. It brings into focus a broader point, which is that this full automation society, these steps towards a fully industrial, fully post-industrial society, ultimately leading, Amazon is a prototype of a full automation operation. We will live in that world, but something like the federal land dividend, this basic income for this middle class basic income for every adult, it could be viewed as a stopgap measure. Because that full automation framework, which I firmly believe in, that's a few years off, and the job market in that world will be incredibly good. This situation for people starting small businesses and doing the things that they've always dreamed of and could never have imagined, some of the things that they'll be doing in a few years. I'm certain of that. That's very real, but we need to also prepare for what's going to happen in those 10 or 15 years, however many years. We need to have these stopgap measures, like this basic income funded from the federal land dividend, like a full-grown public health service across the country. We don't. It's quite spotty, the public health service that we have today. We need to see that people are not underinsured, not losing that coverage under any circumstance. That does account for some 30,000 deaths a year in this country at present, and that's not the standard of the world around in the developed world. So these are things that need to be corrected. But if you're concerned about the cost of these things, bear in mind that we are moving towards a lot of takeoff effects, a lot of exponential growth effects. The hard work that we have to do now to take care of one another in some years hence, we'll be looking at very different kinds of institutions. I believe more decentralized institutions funded through different means. But we have to be willing to bite the bullet today to save our middle class.
Okay, I love it. You mentioned blockchain. You used the word decentralized. I'm a big blockchain and cryptocurrency person, and personally invest, and I've talked about it extensively on my YouTube channel. So what is your stance on the state, meaning basically state and local governments, and then what's most important, the federal government, and their role in money, and you can maybe answer that in two ways: what you feel like right now, and then maybe predictions for the future, because I just don't think that our ancestors, our future humans are going to look back on us and and look at us with, they're going to think that we're crazy that we let the state control the money in the way like this. Of course, when they control the money, they have massive power over us. Yeah. And so I think just a decentralized and free market with money and what's going on in cryptocurrency right now is incredible. Yes. It's not guaranteed it's going to take over. In fact, it's still highly unlikely in my opinion, but I think it's very important, and that's why I like to talk about it. And
I'm a libertarian.
Right.
And I want to say something. If you consider yourself a libertarian, but you dismiss out of hand these digitalization e-governance services, which seem to be a pretty clear trajectory towards a more voluntarist and decentralized society,
right,
I would question whether you're truly a libertarian.
Right.
Reasonable people might disagree as to tax policy approaches, but if you don't have the imagination to think about digitalization in this way, I would seriously question. That's not directed at you, of course.
Yeah.
I know from your work but I should supposed to be talking to the camera. Yes, so there is maybe a little bit of a false dichotomy in talking about some of this. I do think that we do need the state today, but also the false dichotomy is that we can be doing an awful lot more than we are doing. Libertarians and of course the two parties and all manner of folks can be doing an awful lot more than we are doing to see more representative governance and better forms through digitalization.
I love it. And just generally, personally speaking, I try to keep an open mind. Technology is changing our world and our global society so dramatically, so rapidly. Something that you had an idea of maybe 5 years ago, or your parents had an idea of 50 years ago, that you've clung to and it's part of your identity, it's always good to audit your own thoughts and beliefs and think if that idea is still serving you and serving our society today. Because these technologies are changing so rapidly. So I really applaud you and the rest of the party for, at least throwing big ideas out there and saying, hey, let's really think about this and think about how this could serve us in a better way.
And that ideological fluidity, it's an even bigger concern if you believe, as I do, as everyone who's come to this conference, I believe to some degree, subscribes to the idea of techno-singularitarian effects, of some kind of Moore's law effects, some kind of exponential growth effects. If we see 1,000 years of history in 1 year, as Ray Kurzweil says, we need to have that fluidity. We will not be able to adjust if we are caught in 18th century, 19th century, 20th century modes of thinking. We just won't.
Right.
And
be our detriment.
Yeah. And so that's something, whatever your political philosophy, whatever your preferred economic theory is, I think that's the most important thing that we can say about that.
Right. That's a message I try to share with my audience quite a bit, because I do it daily. Audit your own thoughts. This is about personal development. And just think about, is this idea that I have, is this behavior that I have, whether it's a subconscious or conscious behavior, is this really helping me? Or is this something that, I picked up when I was 4 years old subconsciously from watching my dad mow the lawn or something? And then you have to find ways to change that behavior, update your thoughts as well too. So that's probably more of a conversation for a different time, but it does play in and is really important to these huge ideas that you're talking about that are so crucial and so important to drive our society forward. So it is very late and we've had a long day, but I do want to give you an opportunity to close and kind of share any other big thoughts and I'll even give you a minute to gather, because we came out here afterwards. If there's any big things that you want to state before we sign off.
Yeah. Well, the Futurist New Deal for America is a platform of the Transhumanist Party. You might not be familiar with that platform. You might not be familiar with the Transhumanist Party, but the top-tier Democratic candidates, they've borrowed heavily from our last
right. It's almost like you guys are beta testing for the big ones, right?
But so get ahead of the curve now. Check out what we're doing in the Transhumanist Party. Look at some of our materials. We're going to be publishing a lot more policy planks and other issues as we're assigning key advisors in this administration. So take a moment and check that out. My campaign slogan is "Radical life extension is closer than you think." That is my core value, and it is also the number one tenet of this organization, the Transhumanist Party itself. And we have to find a way to see that we do a service to that prospect. And I hope that the Futurist New Deal does that a little bit, and I hope that it is put forth in a way that that people will understand and accept it, and maybe we can continue to be that kind of incubator, like we've described for the larger political system, in a bigger and bigger way.
I love it. Well, everybody, we really appreciate you taking the time to listen to us. And any other final thoughts?
No. I've enjoyed your stuff, and so it's good to meet you in person, man.
Definitely. Great to meet you as well.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Have a great
Thanks,
night.
man. Yeah.